A scientist types the wrong number into a computer, not a big wrong number. A tiny one. He meant to type 0.506127. He typed 0.506. A rounding error smaller than anything you would notice. Smaller than anything that should matter. He came back to find a completely different weather pattern on his screen. Not slightly different, not a variation on the same thing, a completely different world. As if the simulation had been given entirely different starting conditions from the beginning. 2 runs, starting almost identically, ending up in completely different places. Edward Lorenz stared at that for a long time, and what he realized sitting at that desk completely changed how science thinks about the future. Small things do not stay small. In complex systems, weather, economies, ecosystems, history, tiny differences at the start amplify, not gradually, exponentially. They get bigger and bigger until they dominate the entire behavior of the system. And the rules driving all of this are not random. Every step follows exact, deterministic physics. But the sensitivity is so extreme that even a measurement error smaller than anything visible to the naked eye eventually snowballs into a completely different outcome. Lorenz eventually framed it as a question that became one of the most famous lines in science. Does the flap of a butterfly's wings in Brazil set off a tornado in Texas? The answer is yes. Not that specific butterfly and that specific tornado, but the atmosphere is sensitive enough that something that small, a wing generating a tiny air current, could be the difference between a storm forming weeks later or not forming at all. Here is the part that really gets under your skin. This is not about randomness. Everything is following the rules exactly. The physics is working perfectly, but the system is so sensitive to starting conditions that you can never measure those conditions precisely enough to predict what happens next. There is always something you missed, always a butterfly you did not account for. This is why weather forecasts fall apart past about 10 days. Not because meteorologists are bad at their jobs, because the atmosphere is a chaotic system, and small measurement errors grow faster than anyone can correct for them. You could build the best instruments ever made, collect data from every point on Earth, run the most powerful computer in existence, and you still could not forecast reliably 2 months out. The butterfly problem is not a technology problem, it is a physics problem, and it shows up everywhere. A car takes a wrong turn in Sarajevo in 1914. That wrong turn puts the car in front of an assassin who had already given up for the day. Archduke Franz Ferdinand is shot. World War I starts. The 20th century, every war, every border, every political system, every person born or not born downstream of that century, becomes what it is because of a driver who turned down the wrong street. A meteor hits the Yucatan Peninsula 66 million years ago at a slightly different angle, and the mass extinction plays out differently. The mammals that survived and eventually became us, maybe they do not get their window. Maybe something else inherits the Earth. The angle of a rock from space and the entire trajectory of life on this planet changes. You miss your train. You end up in a coffee shop. You meet someone. That conversation leads to a job, leads to a city, leads to a person who becomes the most important person in your life. Or you catch the train and none of that happens and your life is completely different and you never know what you missed. Every path is like this. Every outcome resting on a chain of small events that could have gone another way, feeding into each other, amplifying until they produce something that feels inevitable, but was never inevitable at all. The thing that makes this genuinely disorienting is that chaos theory does not say the universe is random. It says the universe is completely determined and completely unpredictable at the same time. Every cause has an effect. Every effect causes something else. Nothing is outside the rules, but the rules are so sensitive that the future is effectively out of reach. Not because it is not determined, but because the determination depends on information we will never have. There is something quietly liberating in this. If small things can cascade into enormous consequences, then small actions matter more than they appear to. A conversation you have today, a decision you make differently, a moment where you choose to act instead of waiting. Any of these could be the butterfly whose wings you never see the full effect of. And there is something humbling that does not go away. You are not steering as much as you think you are. You are making decisions inside a system so sensitive and so vast that the outcomes you experience are only partly about what you did. The rest is the accumulated flutter of 10,000 butterflies you never saw, setting off storms you never expected, changing everything before you had a chance to plan for it. Lorenz rounded a number. A butterfly moved its wings. A driver turned down the wrong street. The world became what it is, and somewhere right now something too small to notice is already becoming something you will not see coming.